Now we're going to do some examples using divisibility rules, and the big idea for all of this, the reason we're learning this, is no calculator. The idea is to not have to use a calculator for these divisibility rules. So I'm going to find out, we're going to put all the divisibility rules together and find out which numbers will divide 2640, right? 2640. So I'm going to start off with the ones where we only have to look at a single digit, which is the ones digit. So the 0. Right? We just have to consider the 0. 2, 5, and 10. You only have to consider the ones place. So just look at the 0. Is this number going to be divisible by 2? If the ones digit is a 0, it's just got to be even. So this would be a yes. For 5, it's got to end in a 0 or a 5. It does. So yes. 10, it's got to end in a 0, and it does. So those are all yes. So those all, it's kind of like playing off the same rule. You just look at the last digit. The last digit was even, it was a 0 or a 5, and it was a 0. So those are all yeses. Now let's look at the rule for 4. For 4, you have to look at the last 2 digits. So you're looking at the number 40. Does 4 divide 40? Yes. So it will divide 2640. For 8, you look at the last 3 digits. So you look at the 640. So I want to know, does 8 divide 640? Well, it will. If you think about doing long division, 8 divides into 64 8 times, and then you'd have a 0 on the end. So it does divide 640. And your students could do long division to find out if it divides. But it's better to do long division on 640 than to have to do it on 2640. See, it's saving you some work. Now for 3 and 9, we have to look at the sum of the digits. So let's see what the sum is. 2 plus 6 plus 4 plus 0. That sum would be 12. So we're looking at a sum of 12. Does 3 divide 12? Yes. Does 9 divide 12? No. There's our first one that's a no. So 3 will divide 2640, but 9 will not. And then for 6, we have to look at the rule for 2 and the rule for 3. So 2 was a yes. The number is divisible by 2. 3 is also a yes, and so that implies that 6 will be a yes. So of this entire list, the only one that doesn't divide 2640 is the number 9. Now I like this next question. It says fill in the blanks. You're going to put a single digit in here, so it's 600 and something thousand 400 and then something here at the end. We want to fill in the blanks with single digits so that the number, the full number, is divisible by 6 and 5. And the kicker here is to not use the calculator, okay? Divisible by 6 and 5. So 6 is 2 times 3. So basically we need to make sure that this number we create is divisible by 2 and 3 and 5. Those are the 3 rules that we have to check. Now 2 and 5 only require that you look at the last digit. So let's see if we can figure out what the last digit should be. So this is going to be kind of like step 1. So I'm going to say divisible by 2, last digit must be even. So the last digit, if it's going to be divisible by 2, would have to be one of these numbers. You'd have to insert a 0, a 2, a 4, a 6, or an 8 in this last blank for this to be divisible by 2. If it's going to be divisible by 5, then the last digit must be either a 0 or a 5, right? Got to have either a 0 or a 5 if it's going to be divisible by 5. So what number could we put in the last slot that would satisfy both of those? Like what number shows up in both lists? It's got to be a 0. It has to be. So last digit must be a 0. So I'm going to go ahead and put a 0 there. So that's step 1, is figure out what the last digit's going to be. And to satisfy both of these, it would have to be a 0. Okay, so we've got the rule for 2 and 5. That's already satisfied. Now all we need to do for the second part is to do the divisible by 3 part. Let me scooch this up just a little bit. All right, so to be divisible by 3, the sum of the digits must be divisible by 3. I'm going to write it like this. 3 has to divide the sum of the digits. Well, we don't know what the sum is. We know most of the digits, but we have one that we're missing. So let's go ahead and add up what we have, and then we'll kind of see what we're lacking. So if I do 6 plus 3 plus 4 plus 1 plus 0, that's what we have so far, right? 6, 3, 4, 1, and 0. If I add that up, that's 10, 13, that's 14. So I'm trying to figure out what could I put in this last digit so that I get a number, an amount that's divisible by 3. So what you want to do is just cycle through all of the single digit numbers. Like, what if I put a 0 in this digit? 14 plus nothing would be 14. Does 3 divide that? No. In fact, let me just make a list. Let's see, 0, 1, 2, 3. Like our final digit is going to be one of these. If I put in a 0 right there, I get 14 as my sum. That's not divisible by 3, so I can't use a 0. What if I use a 1? 14 plus 1, if I put a 1 in that digit, that would be 15. Does 3 divide 15? Yes, so a 1 would work. So a 1 is a possibility. Let's see. What if I were to do 14 plus 2? 14 plus 2 would be 16. Is that divisible by 3? No. What if I put in a 3 right here? 14 plus 3 would be 17. Is 17 divisible by 3? No. What if I put a 4? 14 plus 4 is 18. Is 18 divisible by 3? Yes, it is. So 4 would also work as a possibility in this last slot. We're going to get multiple answers. That's what's happening here. Okay, what if we put in a 5? Well, that would be 19. Does 3 divide 19? No. What if we put in a 6? We'd get 20. Does 3 divide 20? No. What if we put in a 7? Okay, if we put in a 7, 14 plus 7 equals 21. 3 divides in 21, so that one's going to work. Do you see what's happening is the 1 worked, and then if you go up 3, you get to 4, and if you go up 3, you get to 7. I'll just go ahead and tell you 8's not going to work, and 9's also not going to work. So the only possibilities that will work are 1, 4, or 7. So you can fill in this final blank here with either a 1 or a 4 or a 7. So your final answers would look like either 6, 1, 3, like where we put a 1 in that second slot, or 6, 4, 3 at the beginning, or 6, 7, 3 at the beginning. But these would be the only options, the only answers you could give that satisfied the divisibility rule for 2 and 5 and also 3 at the same time. So if you're just systematic about it, you can figure it out and you shouldn't need a calculator. So I don't want to see you like on the honor lock video just like scrolling through the calculator trying all of the options. Like, this is a more systematic way to get at the answer.